You're about to see this pig expertly butchered and transformed into 8 different dishes over the next few hours, days, and months. From one animal, you can get products so different they barely seem related. Today we're following butcher John Ratliff in his shop Ends Meat as he transforms this pig.
From a half pig, the options for what you can make are pretty endless.
Well put, John. Where should we begin? It can be hard to grasp the full range of what a pig can become, so John has chosen 8 distinct pork products that capture its remarkable range of textures, flavors, and craftsmanship.
This picnic ham is going to yield some lean meat for hot dog.
Hot dogs are essentially flavorful cooked sausages, but many joke that they contain mystery meat. Here, the mystery is solved.
Hot dogs get a little bit of a rough rap. Maybe some deserve it. I don't know. I don't make all the hot dogs out there. We just make our hot dogs. These hot dogs are coming from beautiful cuts of fatty meat from the shoulder and the hind leg. It's the same protein we'd be using to make any sausage that we work with. Ingredients are salt, turbinado, mustard, coriander, white pepper, garlic, mace, paprika, and nitrite. Nitrite produces nitric oxide, and it's a preservative for the product. It helps retain color. We're gonna go ahead and grind this protein first to break it down into small particulates. 70-30 lean pork to fat. We keep them super cold so that the fat doesn't over smear and become greasy and separate out. We're gonna let this refrigerate, get super duper cold, and then we're gonna put it in the bowl cutter with ice, which is a bunch of blades that spin in quick succession, and we make an emulsion with our spices and our salts and sugars. I wanted one of these my entire career, and I finally got one. This is all probably about 36 degrees. The bowl is ice cold. We want to break down the protein particulate super duper fine.
An emulsion is just a fancy word for getting fat and water to stick together. If you didn't emulsify, the hot dog would break apart. Add some water, salt, and plenty of mixing, and the pork turns sticky like glue. It grabs onto the fat and water and keeps them from running away.
Everything came together. From this point, I'm going into our sausage stuffer. This is a vacuum stuffer. I love it so much. It has portion control, the ability to vacuum out all air pockets before casing, and it is just really good looking. This is a sheep casing. It's part of the intestinal tract.
The casing is like shrink wrap for meat. It squeezes everything together and removes the oxygen, which keeps the bacteria at bay.
Now we're gonna hang it in our smoker and let it cook all the way. So this is a Pro Smoker. When I say Pro Smoker, I mean the company's name Pro Smoker. It makes me look like a pro smoker, but I really just program it to do everything it needs to do. When you cook protein, it loses a percentage of its water content. One of the many points of emulsifying protein is so that it doesn't lose its water content. These are cased at 80 grams, and by the time it's smoked and cooled, it should still maintain it roughly 80 grams because it is an emulsified product. Program runs it through its dry cycle, smoke cycle, then a steam cycle, then a water shower cycle. We put these hot dogs in a little over 3 hours ago. We're gonna take these over to our blast chiller.
A blast chiller is an extremely effective and controllable refrigerator.
And let them chill fully before packaging them and sending them to the butcher shop and sending them out to restaurants.
Now, John's moving on from a complicated product to one that's comparatively simple.
This is the belly. You can use it for a million things. Today I'm making bacon.
Bacon. Crispy, chewy, smoky, salty, sweet-y. It's one of the most popular and versatile products that comes from a pig. And it all starts with the belly.
This will be a good slammer. Woo!
Just because pork belly tends to be a single muscle doesn't mean it's straightforward.
Countless layers of protein and delicious fat. Fats that are soft, fats that are hard.
The road to bacon begins with a few small ingredients, known collectively as a cure.
The cure consists of kosher salt, turbinado sugar, finely ground cinnamon, and ground black peppercorn. Once I apply this cure, it's gonna sit for 10 days, allowing the salts and sugars and spices to penetrate the protein. We just took our bacon off of a 10-day cure. We're gonna smoke this at a cooler temperature for 3 hours.
Smoking was once a way to protect meat. Today, we use smoke mostly for flavor.
And then cook it with moist heat for the remainder of its cooking period, just so we can retain some moisture in the protein and the exterior doesn't dry out too bad. Bacon's been smoking. We're gonna transfer it over to our blast chiller. Bacon is nice and chilled. This is ready to be packaged and vacuum sealed and sent to our butcher shop to be sliced and served on burgers or sold directly to customers.
The uses of bacon are only limited by one's imagination, but John is moving on to another whole muscle, one very different from pork belly.
Out of the boss and butt, I'm gonna yield the Coppa, also known as the capicola, the gabagool.
Coppa, or gabagool, is both simple and complex. From a single muscle comes the perfect mix of tender meat and buttery fat. But patience is key because a great Coppa can take half a year to be ready.
Mixture of muscles in here that all have webs of beautiful intermuscular fat. The muscle is extremely active, so it has a lot of flavor. You can see how dark the protein is, a darker red hue to it. The more active the muscle is, there's more oxygen, there's more myoglobin in the protein. Because it has these kind of webbed layers of fat, once this gets cured with salt, sugar, garlic, and chili, and aged for 6 months, the sliceability of it stays very moist. It's nice little strands of fat that keep it soft and supple on the palate. Supple? Sure. Sick. I'm going to apply the cure to the protein. The less moisture is, the less chance for bacteria to survive. Also, salt tastes good. Coming off of its 14-day cure, we're ready to encase this in caul fat. Caul fat is pork stomach lining. And this is gonna act as our barrier between the outside oxygen and the protein surface. Nice tubular shape. We're gonna go ahead and truss this. This helps give us the tension. I'm going up and over. As the product dries, the more pressure from the exterior, the better the final texture and shape of the Coppa. Okay. And we are ready for fermentation process. Outside of the bacterial prevention aspect, what that fermentation does, it gives us a really nice sliceability, binds this protein together. The protein strands shrink up and then they expand out. These units go through the wall. We put raw product in on one side and take cooked or fermented or dried product out on the other. We put on fermentation about 48 hours ago on the other side of this through our production room. These are gonna go for a nice long rest. They'll lose 35 to 40% of their original water weight. This is the Coppa a couple of months into drying. We're gonna see a really nice mold coverage start to form. This casing is really starting to dry out and shrink onto the product.
For once, this is mold we want. It slows the rate of drying, blocks more harmful microbes from entering, and even adds a bit of flavor.
That is a very beneficial mold, and it produces so much flavor and aroma. After about 4 months, we have casing that is pretty much fully formed onto the product. The mold is kind of chilling out because not as much moisture is being pulled to the surface. After about 6 months, the casing's gonna get sliced and removed, and then we're gonna vacuum seal this, let it hang out for a couple of weeks, and then these are gonna get shipped out to restaurants and sold as sliced cured meats through our deli case. The Ropa-Dopa Coppa.
This Coppa needs to dry for several more months, so let's move on to one of the most simple cuts of all.
We have the 6th through the 13th rib, separating 2 loin parts here. We're gonna leave the skin on this and dry age this. For dry aged pork chops.
Dry aging a pork chop is as simple as it gets. No spice blends, no smoke, just a sharp knife, thyme, and a whole lot of flavor.
Our dry aged pork chop is gonna be going into a box that's temperature and humidity controlled. Dry aged pork is a little different from dry aging beef in the regard that we're not trying to go for tenderness and crazy amounts of mold on the exterior. We're really just trying to pull some moisture out of it and intensify the natural porkiness, dry out that pork fat so it renders nicer, and just basically tighten things up. We're gonna put it up on a top shelf with a lot of air movement to just pull off as much moisture as we can. Here's our dry version. This has been dry aging for about 30 days. Got a nice little crust on the outside. Skin's really, really hard. You can see our rib bones starting to protrude from the dehydration. And we're gonna go put it on the bandsaw and cut ourselves a nice pork chop. This is an insane amount of fat. Nobody actually eats that much, so we just try to take off a nice even amount, leaving a responsible fat cap on there that I like to open up so it renders out. Once it renders, it gets really crispy and really nice. That's our beautiful dry-aged pork chop.
The pork chop was about as simple as things get. It's time to switch gears into one of the most complex products you can make.
This guy we want to be able to get some lean meat out of for our salami.
Salami isn't found in nature. Only the hubris of man could combine these separate parts of the pig into something so much greater.
Salami Piccante is a type of salumi that is a mixture of very lean meat ground with very solid fat. This hard fat back we cube up, throw it in the freezer, and grind it with this very lean protein for our salumi. This is lean meat blend of brisket, clawed heart, underblade, petite tender, spices and salts and sugars, kosher salt, turbinado, finely ground New Mexico red chili, coarsely ground New Mexico red chili. I grew up in New Mexico, so I always bring a little bit of New Mexico with me in everything I do. These are both versions of a dried hatch red chili that have a medium spice level to it. A little bit of picante. Nitrate, fennel seed, and our starter culture, which we apply to allow beneficial bacteria to produce lactic acid and preserve the product. Going to grind all of our proteins with all of our hard fat. The desired fat ratio is about 70-30. The fat is frozen, so it's about 10 degrees right now. Instead of smashing it or smearing it into the protein, we're able to create little balls of fat that are nice and will blend in and give a good separate speckled visual. We want texture to be kind of loose, and then it all tightens up when it ferments and dries. Everybody in the boat? As I'm just trying to distribute, I use this like raking motion with my fingers to try to help pull all the seasoning through and make sure that culture gets penetrated into every corner.
Raw meat spoils fast, so salami makers add a friendly bacteria culture which eats the sugar and turns the mix acidic. This tangy acidity is hostile to dangerous microbes.
This ground mixture is referred to as a farce. We're gonna be casing it inside of a 90 millimeter collagen casing. It's gonna allow us to dehydrate the product, and the casing will shrink with the product, constantly allowing moisture to pass through it. We're gonna allow this little hand crank to force all the sausage into this collagen casing. I wanna try to mitigate any air gaps or spaces between the proteins, and that'll allow really solid bind, and once it's dried, a really good sliceability. Since we inoculated this with bacteria, it needs to go directly into a fermentation chamber. Off to the side, we have a little small package of the farce. We use that so we can monitor and test the pH. I'm gonna hang out at 75 degrees with a 95% humidity for 48 to 72 hours until we get our pH below 5.3. These have been on fermentation for 48 hours. They're ready to come out. The product is going through many stages in this room. At the beginning, we have a very wet fermented product. Now what we really want to do is let it hang out in this room, let the moisture extract to the surface and dissipate into the environment. We have a batch 2 weeks into its life cycle, and you can see a beautiful mold start to form on the exterior. A decent amount of moisture lost, and the protein itself is starting to tighten up. This has been aging for about 3 months. The mold kind of chills out as there's less and less moisture being pulled to the surface. There's less for the mold to feed on. So at this point, we're going to pull the casing off, and this product is either going out to restaurants or going to our butcher shop, and we're slicing it for customers.
We worked through many of the small cuts and even the scraps, but one of the biggest muscles is still waiting.
We're looking at a ham right now with the H-bone attached, the tailbone, and the top sirloin.
Smoky, salty ham wins us over with a texture perfectly balanced between tender and chewy.
Ham-a-llama. So we're gonna make our brine and smoked ham. The brine is salt, sugar, coriander, black peppercorn, fennel seed, and nitrite. Dissolve that in water, submerge our ham, and allow it to brine for 10 days.
Curing and brining are similar but different. Brine adds moisture as it seasons, while a dry cure leaves the ham denser and drier.
The muscles in the ham are very lean. Once they're smoked for a period of time, can get very dry. So we try to mitigate that a little bit by submerging them in liquid, and they've absorbed some of that brine, and it maintains a juicy moisture. I'm doing this in a bag, have better control over our brine ratio, and then we'll put this in our vacuum sealer to close the top. This has been in a brine for 10 days. We did use chunky spices in our brine, but I like the spice profile a little more pronounced. We use the same spices to rub those on the exterior.
After brining, the ham heads to the smoker where the surface darkens and firms up, and the inside picks up a mellow, smoky depth.
We killed the smoking cycle about an hour ago, and we're gonna carry it over to our blast chiller. All right, this ham is nice and cool. Put it on the meat slicer, shave it very thin for sandwiches. This also goes out to various restaurants. That's ham-a-llama.
Heavy lifters are done. Now we turn to a rare, more refined muscle, one that calls for a gentler touch.
We're gonna be cutting the pork jowl off to make our guanciale.
Guanciale, the pig's cheek, fatter and richer than bacon. There's just 2 per animal, so the stakes are high.
Jowls are comprised of very soft, luscious fat. Very fatty, one slender strip of meat down the middle.
Like the Coppa, guanciale is cured to remove water and add flavor. Unlike the Coppa, which is more lean, guanciale is rich in fat. While Coppa is typically sliced, guanciale is usually diced and cooked to render its fat, or pasta sauces like carbonara.
I'm applying cure to this: salt, turbinado sugar, cherry black peppercorn. It allows the fat to get really dense. After it's dried for 2 months, it'll have a really nice sliceability to it. I'm predominantly gonna rub them into my exposed side. They don't penetrate the skin side as much. The prolonged aging and exposed to oxygen can cause that to turn rancid. So the skin helps prevent that. All right, so we just took our pork jowl out of a 14-day cure. Over the 14 days, the sodium and sucrose has pulled out a lot of moisture and making the fat much more dense. And now we're going into our fermentation chamber. We're taking our guanciales out of fermentation. They've spent about 48 hours in here, getting all funky and delicious. These bad boys are gonna hang for about 8 weeks. We'll see about 25 to 30% water loss on these. These jowls are about a month in, still a little soft, not a ton of mold development. Now we're getting to about 2 months, nice and firm and dense. We're gonna peel this fat off, exposing the beautiful white flesh underneath. It's probably one of the best sellers out of our butcher shop.
We've watched most of this pig become a series of elegant products and dishes, but the most creative one is still ahead. All day as John worked his way through this pig, he was constantly setting aside trim and scrap.
Trim, terrine meat, small bits from the pig, amazingly delicious. They're just not big enough in their own right to become their own product.
Knowing it would be great for the terrine. A terrine combines scraps of meat, fat, and seasoning into a delicious sliceable loaf.
We want to add enough fat so that you get richness to kind of counterbalance organ meat that is extremely lean. Flavor-wise, we're looking at salt, cinnamon, a little allspice, turbinado, mace, and a little nitrite. Texture, we're looking at blanched pistachios, currants that have been cooked in the brandy that we're going to fold into it. And we utilize the cream and the eggs to help bring everything together and give us a nice sliceability at the end. We're just going to grind our liver and our fatty protein together. Really rely on products like this to help us utilize the whole carcass. Odds and ends have to get utilized to process an animal successfully. Liver is like, it has this crazy creaminess. It's very high in protein, but it's also very high in water. The liver really kind of fills in the gaps between the protein and the fat and helps kind of make it this unctuous flavor profile. Everybody in, we got those ground salami bits, our spices, our nuts, brandy that we hydrated the currants in, cream, and our eggs. We want to allow the salt to start extracting a protein called myosin.
Myosin is essentially meat glue. Salt and mixing pull it out, cooking makes it lock up. That's what keeps a terrine from crumbling.
So I grab a little ball, we let it go for 10 seconds. If it doesn't hold for 10 seconds, then we keep mixing. And I didn't count, so I'm thinking by the end of this episode, we'll have finished this product.
It was long enough.
It's ready to be molded, which gives it the terrine shape. So this is the sexiest meatloaf you've ever had. Stomach lining, caul fat, is used as the exterior to help retain some of the moisture. What I'm using now is just standard plastic wrap. Another layer that helps retain moisture, but more importantly, remove the terrine from the terrine mold. All right, I love this stuff. I'm gonna try to fill this in so that I press out any air gaps. This is gonna cook, and as the protein coagulates, it's gonna get a little taller and shrink in from the edges. And as we cool it with a weight on it, it's all gonna redistribute back into the terrine. So now this terrine is on its way to its steam bath. We put it in a steam bath in the oven, set it on a sheet tray with another sheet tray on top and some weight. The tin of olives is the chosen weight in this situation. We let this warm up just a little bit so that we can peel the edges away and hopefully it tamps out. If I did my job well. There we go. This guy is going to get cut into 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch slices and enjoyed with a nice glass of wine. Very delicious treat.
And there you have it, every possible pork product in existence. Well, actually, there are countless other products that are made spanning different cultures, countries, and centuries. In fact, there are over 40 more pork products made just from this butcher shop. This is only a small sample of just how much a single animal can be transformed.